Some of the most recognizable names in the U.S. sports media landscape have lost their jobs as a part of a cost-cutting measure undertaken by ESPN. Back in February, Disney, the parent company of the major sports network owner, announced that some 7,000 members of staff would be laid off. Despite the company's profits soaring by 56% to $12.1 billion last year. Although it is unconfirmed whether the cuts to staff at ESPN is related to this measure, 20 members of ESPN's on-air team have been relieved of their duties. The layoffs also follow those put in place by other media companies in the U.S., including at CNN, The Athletic, and National Geographic, and include household names such as Mark Jackson, Jalen Rose, Jeff Van Gundy, and Keyshawn Johnson. Today's video will be why ESPN is losing their minds with all the firings. Mama, there goes that man! That signature tagline will no longer be heard on ESPN's NBA broadcasts, and the move came as a surprise to Jackson. This morning, unexpectedly, I was informed that my services were no longer needed at ESPN, Jackson wrote on social media. Although shocked and dismayed with the suddenness of it all, I would like to thank ESPN and all the staff of the NBA ESPN crew for allowing me to be part of the organization for the past 15-plus years. Jackson was generally classy in his remarks about the departure, praising Van Gundy, Breen, and sideline reporter Lisa Salters. It's been an honor to sit next to two legends in the business who are like brothers to me, Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy. Lisa Salters is a GOAT and like a sister to me, and I'm proud of the work she continues to do, he wrote. He also, without naming them, wished good things for his replacements. I wish greater measures of success to the new ESPN team. May they continue to elevate this game that has given me a home and a life. Johnson and Rose might be the first two to come to mind after Shannon Sharpe left FS1's Undisputed due to increased tensions with co-host Skip Bayless. Stephen A. Smith has discussed the matter on his FanDuel show.
ESPN, just the other day, laid off about 20 members of its on-air talent. Friends of mine, actually. Definitely respected colleagues who've done a phenomenal job and deserved better. But it's not Disney or ESPN that they deserved better from. They deserved better from than the times we're living in.
Smith continued to say that he's got a lot of love for Jalen Rose, who was part of the layoffs, and called him a brilliant basketball mind.
Jeff Van Gundy's another. You don't get labeled as a part of the A-team unless you're an A-teamer. That was Jeff Van Gundy, former head coach of the New York Knicks, former head coach of the Houston Rockets, outstanding, brilliant basketball analyst for ESPN for years. I could say I'm going to miss him, but I just can't imagine he's going to be out of work for long. I'm sure I'll see him on the air doing his thing. Jeff Van Gundy's been a Hall of Fame analyst and commentator.
Although some folks on Twitter thought Smith omitted Max Kellerman, his former co-host on First Take, Smith did pay tribute to him on his FanDuel show.
I'm even going to mention Max Kellerman. I know y'all thought I wouldn't. I am not happy that he is gone. We all know what history we had. We all know what happened with he and I parting ways on First Take. I don't want the brother unemployed. I want him gainfully employed. I want him having a job and a career.
Out of the 20 personalities laid off, the ditching of Jeff Van Gundy shocked the NBA world the most. It also led to many speculations about why the company decided to fire him. On an episode of his podcast, Chris Russo delivered a wild take, suggesting how Adam Silver is responsible for JVG's firing. Mad Dog supported his theory by saying that fellow analyst Mark Jackson would have also been removed if the network was genuinely concerned about cutting costs.
Well, let me put it this way. I can't fathom the idea that ESPN in these layoffs, and we'll get to them in a minute, would fire Jeff Van Gundy. You're not going to convince me he's a great, and I know he comes on here so you can sit there and say, and I've known him for 40 years, or 30, since 1990, 33 years. I understand that. But so maybe I'm biased, but you are not going to convince me that ESPN woke up, Bob Iger woke up in the last 2 weeks, looked at the budget sheet and said, we got to fire Van Gundy. because we got to save some money. If that's the case, fire Mark Jackson. ESPN will never admit it. That leaves me to the conclusion that somebody in the league office must have told ESPN, I want Van Gundy out. We all know he's biting. We all know he gets on the officials. We all know he doesn't hold back with his NBA opinions. So if you're asking me, little talk show host who may not know a thing, this is just my opinion, Silver is the one who fired Van Gundy. Silver told ESPN, I want him out.
According to Mad Dog, the NBA commissioner meddled in the matter because of Gundy's blunt and controversial nature. However, the only truth in Russo's viral rant was that the former NBA head coach was never afraid to voice his concerns about the officiating and rules on live broadcasts. ESPN changed its top NBA broadcast team for the upcoming season, adding Doris Burke and Doc Rivers to call games with Mike Breen. Many fans and analysts don't understand why ESPN chose to shake things up, and that includes an analyst from the network's competitor. TNT analyst Kenny Smith said he was as confused as anyone as to why ESPN fired Jackson and Van Gundy. I'm not really sure how they're doing it. I'm not really versed on why they're doing all their cuts, and how it is budgetary, because certain guys are getting let go, and then you hire someone else for more money. I have no idea why they're doing it, but stability is what brings success. Therefore, Smith is proud of what TNT has developed with Inside the NBA, as he, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and Ernie Johnson have been together for over a decade. People can count on certain things. I think that's what makes us the best show on television. We have stability. We're entertaining, Smith said. But more importantly, we have stability. We have guys that you can really count on that know the game. The trio of Breen, Van Gundy, and Jackson have been the premier broadcast team for ESPN's NBA coverage for the better part of the past 2 decades. They were together from 2006 to 2011, and again from 2014 to 2023. But Van Gundy and Jackson are out after heavy layoffs at ESPN, and Breen couldn't be more disappointed. It's sad because we really thought we had something special, and that's going to be the thought going forward, is that we were able to do it longer than anybody ever did. Breen told the New York Post about the firings of Van Gundy and Jackson. It's something we'll all treasure, but we just wish it was a little bit longer. You don't expect it because it was such a great team, and to have it completely broken up was a surprise. When Breen was the radio voice for the New York Knicks in the 90s, Van Gundy was an assistant coach with the team while Jackson was the Knicks point guard. It's a relationship that spans decades, one that goes far beyond the profession. They were the dream partners, Breen said. All the accomplishments were because of what we did together. I really do feel personally, any success I had was because I had those two guys next to me. They just provided everything you would want in analysts. They're smart, they're funny, they're knowledgeable about their sport, they're opinionated. They love their sport, but are not afraid to criticize. They just had a little bit of everything. The other part of it is the personal part, and that's tougher. Now, we're going to be friends until the day we die. This type of longevity and chemistry that the trio had built over the years will obviously be tough to replicate for Burke and Rivers, and JJ Redick detailed as much in an interview with Front Office Sports on Wednesday. It's going to be a little weird for sure. I felt like Mark and Jeff and Mike is just such an iconic team, and they've been on the call for so many historic moments, at least historic moments in my generation. So, it's going to be weird, Redick told Front Office Sports. Redick was actually among the candidates to join Mike Breen in the booth next season. So it's particularly interesting for him to say things will feel weird without Jackson and Van Gundy at ESPN next season. Hope you enjoyed the video. Drop a like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing NBA content.